Welcome to the Gaslight Effect Podcast. I'm Robin Stern, co-founder and associate director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and author of the best-selling book, The Gaslight Effect. I'm an educator and a psychoanalyst, but first and foremost, I'm a wife, a mother, a sister, aunt, and healer. And just like many of you, I was a victim of gaslighting. Please join me for each episode as I interview fascinating guests and explore the concept of gaslighting. You'll learn what it truly means to be gaslighted, how it feels, how to recognize it, and how to understand it, and ultimately, how to get out of it. Before we begin, I want you to know that talking about gaslighting can bring up challenging and painful emotions. Give yourself permission to feel them. Some of you may want to go more deeply with your emotions, while some of you may hold them more lightly. No matter what you're feeling, know that your emotions are a guide to your inner life. Your emotions are sacred and uniquely you. Respect and embrace them, for they have information to give you. If you want to listen to other episodes of the Gaslight Effect podcast, you can find them at robinstern.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for being here with me. Welcome to the Gaslight Effect, and I am thrilled to welcome with me today Dr. Debi Silber. Dr. Debi Silber is the world's leading expert on how betrayal and broken trust affect human performance. She's the founder and the CEO of the PBT Institute, the world's leading organization devoted to betrayal recovery research, education, and transformation. A PhD credentialed researcher, two-time TEDx speaker with over 2 million combined views, two-time #1 international best-selling author, globally ranked podcast host from Betrayal to Breakthrough, top 1% of all podcasts, and founder of National Forgiveness Day, her work has been validated across 100,000 plus people in 50 plus countries. And Debi has redefined what's possible for individuals, teams, and organizations ready to move forward. Wow. What an introduction to a wonderful woman and such a giving professional to the world. Thank you. Thank you, Debi, for all your work. Dr. Silber, tell us more. How did you get into this work, and why is betrayal a different kind of trauma?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation. You don't think I just wanted to study betrayal? No, you study because you have to. I had a very painful betrayal from my family. And a few years later, I thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. A few years later, it happened again. This time it was my husband. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house and looked at the two experiences, thinking what's similar to these two? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized I never took my needs seriously. It was always about everybody else. And I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. I would always go to books or courses or mentors to learn my way through something. And there wasn't anything available. And this was so big that I just decided I needed to study it. So big. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business right after betrayal. And I enroll in a PhD program. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, manage it, all of it, but I needed to understand this. And as I was going through the program, it was really one of those moments where I said, I have no idea if and how I can heal from this, but if I can, I'm taking everybody with me. It was a knowing. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life. So to answer your question, how is betrayal different? That was the first discovery. Happy to share more about that if you want.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, when you think about it, let's say you lose someone you love, right? You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, life will never be the same. But you don't necessarily go back and question the relationship. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. And also think about it. Let's use that example again. When you lose someone you love, for example, the invitation is to rebuild your life without them. It'll never be the same, but the invitation is to rebuild your life. With betrayal, not only is life as you've known it shattered, the self is shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, destroyed. So, what so many people do is they try to rebuild their life, but they don't rebuild the self. And they're wondering why they're struggling years and decades later. That's just another reason. Here's another one. When you, let's take again, losing someone you love, people rally. What do you need? How can I help? Bring in the casseroles, whatever, right? When it comes to betrayal, there's so much shame, humiliation, embarrassment. The betrayed didn't even do anything, but that's what they're feeling. So often they're struggling and suffering in silence. To make matters worse, very often the betrayer is so loved by the community, the family, the friends. They're taking the hit for that, protecting the betrayer at their own expense. So here they've had one of the most painful of the human experiences, and they're acting like it's a regular Tuesday.
Can you talk about the impact that it has in more detail? Because I know that when I was first writing about gaslighting, I thought, I understand what it is. Let me help other people understand what it is. But I really want people to know how it affects them. Really want people to know how it's affecting the people around them who are being gaslighted. So we want to hear that from you. Like, what is
Yeah.
actually happening to you?
Right. And that actually just moves us right into the second discovery. It's that collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's now known as post betrayal syndrome. And we have tested over 100,000 people. I'm happy to share some of those stats. But I want to just mention one other thing, which is one of the reasons why it's so disorienting, betrayal. Think about it. This was the person who gave you a sense of safety and security, and that's the person who took it away. This was the person you run to when other people are causing harm. That's become the person causing the harm. And this is a huge missed opportunity too. I see this, we certify a lot of coaches and therapists and practitioners, and it's a very common thing to be told, you need to trust again. Now, I wrote the book Trust Again, so I understand how important trust is. And they'll say, oh, start with something low stakes. Trust a friend, with something. That is so off. And here's why. Think about it. When we trust someone, we have our own system that we create. Maybe it's if they say or do something consistently, repeatedly, 50 or 100 times, whatever our number is, I can decide they're trustworthy, whatever our own system is. So now think about this. Now, the person that we gave our trust to betrays that trust. As shattering and traumatizing as that is, what's worse is we look and say, oh no, my system that I've created to discern trustworthiness is broken. My compass is broken. My system is fundamentally flawed. There's no sense of safety in ourselves now, you see? So to trust in someone else, that's the last place we need to be looking. We have no measurement system of trust anymore.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And it is very similar to what happens after a gaslighting relationship, where when you're just focusing on the gaslighting, for instance, you leave the relationship and the ghost of gaslighting is following you. And you are living that, is this real? Like, is this him? Is this me? Is this her? Is this me? And it's very hard to gain that perspective, that discernment again. And it's got to be about you first.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so disorienting because when we believe what that gaslighter is telling us, that's when it's done. Because the relationship, quote unquote, works when you're off kilter, when you believe that, when your confidence is down, all of that. So that's what has to be rebuilt. And people just don't take the time to rebuild that. And they think, oh, the next person will be different or better.
I'll find someone who's not gaslighting, and that'll be the answer. But it's not the answer because you haven't rebuilt. Yes.
Well, that's it. And you'll see this in the third discovery, that until and unless we deliberately and intentionally change, we will attract the same version, the same thing. And that's not to say ever that that's my wheelhouse. Betrayal is our fault, but it is our opportunity, because when everything crashes and burns, it's such a beautiful opportunity to evaluate, what was I settling for? What was I tolerating? what have I outgrown? Who am I ready to become? Anyway, to get to the second discovery, did you have a question before
I did have a question. I wanted you to go through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. So
Mhm.
perhaps you're starting to do that right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the third discovery.
Okay.
And you asked about the symptoms. So I want to share that, the symptoms those are the symptoms of post betrayal syndrome. And I'm going to share some stats with you. And as much as I want you to hear the symptoms, I want you to hear these numbers. Okay. So now imagine 100,000 people, just about every country is represented, men, women, 78% constantly revisit their experience. So if that's where you're spending your time, think about what that's doing to you. Which, of
Revisit
course,
their experience of being betrayed.
yep.
Like going back and forth in that kind of rumination. Could I have done it differently? Was he right? What, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But rumination is important in the beginning. But when it turns, we want to ruminate because we need to extract whatever we can. But when ruminate turns into marinate, it's a whole different. there's a fine line. And in the beginning, and actually before I go on, the ruminating is really important because what we're doing is we're looking to see what we missed. And we're doing that because we think if I can figure this out, what I missed, because my compass is broken, right? If I can figure out what I missed, it'll prevent this from happening again. So the rumination is important in the beginning. When we've made it a habit, and that's what we're doing, that's when it's preventing us from growth. So really important place in the stages, I'll share, but early on, we need to. Later on, it's a complete waste of our time. Okay, 81% feel a loss of personal power. So think about it. When you have a loss of personal power, what sort of decisions are you making? What are you tolerating, right? 80% are hypervigilant. You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. 94% deal with painful triggers. If you've ever had a trigger, it's debilitating. Some of the most common physical symptoms: 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. So you go to sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted. 47% have weight changes. In the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. Very common. 47% have a digestive issue of some kind: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis. I'll tell you a quick story about that. We had a woman in our program in her mid 80s. She had a 70 plus year digestive issue from a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her, something like that. And so you can imagine over the course of 70 plus years, the protocols, the supplements, the foods, the medications, for her just to resign herself to the idea of, I have a bad stomach, it's who I am. 2 weeks in our program, healing the actual betrayal, she healed from a 70 plus year digestive issue. That's what happens when you heal the root.
That is a beautiful story. It's, I'm sure, surprising to many people. And it's just remarkable that that's the truth, right? That the healing is what you need, and the healing begins to heal everything.
Yeah. Some of the most common mental symptoms. And just in our study too, 97%, we're talking about of 100,000 plus people, have at least one of those physical symptoms. 1 in 4 have 11 or more. Okay, mental symptoms. 78% are overwhelmed.
Debi, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
When you were doing this research, which is so important, I mean, it's huge study. Did you remember that you had any of those symptoms?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't have digestive issues, but the sleep. Oh my gosh. Sleep was the worst. I had immune suppression. I would get sick all the time. My hair was falling out. I had such severe joint pain, fibromyalgia. I had, you name it. I had it. I even write about it in Trust Again, panic attacks. I never had that. And when I wound up in the hospital one day, it was a panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. Heartache is real.
Yes. So physical symptoms can mimic that. Yeah.
So, so many of those things, but probably besides the emotional, which I had every single one, the energy and the the sleep was the biggest,
Mhm.
biggest thing. Um,
Thank
so
you for sharing that.
yeah, of course. 62% can't concentrate. So let's just even stop there. Imagine you can't concentrate, you're exhausted, you have let's say a gut issue, and you have to go to work. You have to raise your kids. You have to take care of elderly parents, whatever your obligations are. That's not even emotionally. So emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 82% are very angry, and you're bouncing back and forth between those two all day long. 79% are stressed. As far as the emotional symptoms, 99% of everyone we studied have at least one. 55% have 16 to 20 of those emotional symptoms. Now, here's the craziest thing, all at the same time.
Tell us the emotional symptoms.
The emotional symptoms, things like sadness and anger and feeling hurt and anxiety and stress concurrently. It's not like you go through one, you outgrow it, you go to another. No, you are bouncing back and forth between all of those. Let's see, 92% are hesitant to trust, rightly so, right? This is staggering. 76% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. Think of what that means. With that betrayal, yes, we're keeping the bad ones out, but we're keeping the good ones out as well. So now, because of what someone did years, maybe even decades ago, we have built this wall around us, and we are not letting anyone come close. And the majority of people are doing that. 89% find it hard to move forward. 93% find it hard to move forward, but don't know how. And I just want to wrap up those stats by saying these numbers were super high. You didn't hear me say 20%, 30%, right? They're also not representative of a recent betrayal. This could be, like you heard my story about the 80-something-year-old woman. This could be from the parent who did something when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So this person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are decades later with these symptoms because of what
From
was
that
left
betrayal.
untold.
So somebody comes into your office and says, I don't know what's going on with me. I heard you speak, and maybe this could possibly be something that I'm dealing with, but I don't, I mean, I haven't been betrayed recently. I'm married and I have a family, and I don't know. I can't believe I'd be having symptoms because of something that happened, like, with my father 40 years ago. And you say,
And I say, until and unless you intentionally and deliberately heal anything from any time, it follows you around in your work and your health and your relationships. It follows you around like a shadow. So we do some gentle excavation, not to look back and study all of that, just so we know where the issue started, so we know what stage someone is in, and we know how to gently move them forward. And that's the third discovery, that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if we're going to heal, truly heal, we will move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable.
this is incredibly exciting. So, how did you study this? And did you know what you were looking for? Were you looking for stages? Were you looking for what's the process?
When you do a PhD study, you have to first find the gap in the literature. So you're finding what hasn't been studied, and you have to do this deep exploration of everything that's been studied to find what's missing. I didn't want to do this super broad, just sort of quantitative analysis. Like I wanted to do a deep, deep, deep dive. The 100,000 people came after. The deep, deep dive I did in my study was the deep lived experience of the before, during, and after of someone being betrayed. Like I had hours and hours of conversations with people, and just I didn't want anything left. And no, I didn't want I wanted no stone left unturned. I wanted to see what would emerge. I had no idea. I wasn't a researcher. I just wanted to heal. And through this exploration, and you can imagine a wall. I had a wall in my office, all these sticky notes, and I'm moving things around. And I'll never forget the moment my study chair said, Debbie, I believe you've discovered a process here. And in like the geekiest way, I thought my head was going to fly off my body because the roadmap was undeniable. Yeah. When it showed up in everybody, it was undeniable. And it was interesting because I thought the people who were the hardest hit would grow the least because they had the most to overcome. That had nothing to do with it. And from that, we found the 3 groups who didn't heal. So happy to share the 3 groups who didn't heal.
Please.
Happy to share the 5 stages.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. So go at it, please.
Yeah. So the 5 stages. Again, this was the most exciting out of all 3 of the discoveries because now there was a roadmap, and this was the reason why I was healing so quickly, because if the research proved it works, I did it. If the research proved it didn't really work so much, I was like, what am I bothering with that for? Like I had to heal because I was a case study for everything I was learning.
Anyway. And how far were you from your betrayals when you were doing this research?
Okay, this is going to be shocking to everyone, but my betrayal happened. It was. I learned about it. Like August, the end of August of 2015, January of 2016, I was enrolled in the PhD program. So a few months I was in. The discoveries happened in 2018, and it's been nonstop ever since.
That's really wonderful. Had a lot of courage.
I didn't think I had a choice. I mean, I had kids to raise. I had all these animals. I had a business to run, and there wasn't anything I could find that could help me. So I said, okay, well, I just have to figure this out. And I'm really one of those people that I think I've just trained myself over the years that I would rather try something and fail at it. I don't think we ever fail, but you know what I mean, than wonder what could have been. That to me is intolerable. I've trained myself that the trying and failing, it's like, okay, you tried. But the what if, I can't live with.
Yeah. Well, that's a really beautiful message for the audience too, people listening.
Well, and when you think about it, and when you hear the 5 stages, I did this without the map. There's a roadmap now. There, and that's the part. So staying stuck has become a choice. And I'm not saying that in a way to just really put the pressure on, but I'm saying it because I know how painful being stuck is. And there's really no reason to stay there. And you'll hear it when I share the stages. And it's funny because originally I was setting the betrayal of a family member, partner, or friend. And I always like the upside of something, like what can we do with it? So originally I was setting post-traumatic growth, which is kind of the upside, like how that experience leads you to create a new life or whatever. But so that's what I was originally studying. I had to drop the friend part because while friends will infuriate us, we get super angry and all these things. They don't break us. We're never broken, bent, you know what I mean? Like the family members or the partners. Those are the ones who get us the most. Okay. So super briefly, I mean, this is all we teach within the PBT Institute, our certification programs. I'll give you a brief rundown. So stage 1 is actually before it happens. And when you're in what you think is a healthy relationship, you're not scanning for betrayal. You're in the relationship. You're trusting, which we're supposed to do, right? When we're in what we think is a healthy relationship, you're not on the lookout for it. We also, and that's healthy. But what we also do is intentionally or unintentionally turn down our intuition. And let me explain. When we're unintentionally turning it down, we have so many things to do. And it's almost like so we're doing more thinking and doing than feeling and being. And it's almost like we have so much to do on our to-do list, the work, the kids, the parents, whatever, that the only way we can get it done is if we turn down our intuition. And we kind of do that because we're like, it allows us to do more. And so something may come up and we're like, I don't have the head to take that on, right? But sometimes we intentionally turn it down. And we do that because
What do you mean by that?
you know what,
Give
there
us
must be a logical explanation. I'm sure I'm making something out of nothing. I'm sure it's not what I think. But we're actually doing that because if we were to confront that partner, that boss, that coworker, that friend on what our intuition is telling us, everything we've created and have in place will likely unravel. And we don't have the bandwidth for that. Maybe we don't have the mental, the emotional, maybe we don't have the financial bandwidth. So we make a decision. You know, I'm going to act like I didn't see that. I didn't feel that. So that's why betrayal is such a shock to us.
So we're not really denying it. We're kind of disavowing it. So we know it's there, but we're just not going to deal with it.
And sometimes we have no idea at all. And now everybody listening who's angry right then when I said that they had no idea, I want to reframe this for you. You had no idea because betrayal is designed to be deceptive. And you don't think that way. And that's beautiful. So it's like, if there was a serial killer, you don't know how to think that way. That's a good thing. So you don't know how to think like a betrayer. Good for you. That's why it's such a shock. Like personally, I live very simply and I have a rule. If it's going to hurt someone, don't do it. And I'm always shocked that other people don't live that way, but that's my rule. And that's why betrayal is such a shock. Anyway, stage 2, the scariest of all of the stages. This is, you're shocked, D-Day, Discovery Day. And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, the worldview. Right here, you've ignited the stress response you're headed for. Every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease, your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot understand what your mind, like none of this makes sense.
Does it matter if somebody comes to you and says, you're right. I am not at my office at night. In fact, I've been with another person. You're right. Mm-hmm. Or you discover it because you find a pile of letters somewhere. Does it matter how you find out?
No, the shock of that discovery is it sears itself on your body, your mind, your heart. It's that shock. That's the betrayal right there. And no matter how you receive it, you're never receiving it in a good way, no matter how it's received. But that shock of what you thought was one thing, and in fact, it's something completely different, like the person took a mask off and revealed who they've been, is the traumatizing part right there. And that's a differentiator. That's why it's so different. So any therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, like, oh, trauma's trauma. No, it's not. No, it's not. You may be shocked when life experiences happen. You lose that loved one, natural disaster, whatever. But when your whole perception of what you thought that relationship was is completely not what you thought it was, it is such a different type of shock. So no, if someone tells you trauma is trauma, no, betrayal is very different.
I completely agree with you. When you look back and you realize that you were living a completely different reality than the person who was betraying you was living, and they were sleeping in your bed and having dinner with you at night and loving you, supposedly.
Yeah. So you have to rewrite your whole history.
Yeah.
Very different. Very different.
And how do you do that when you don't really know, if you even know the extent of it?
This is all part of moving through the stages. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why stage 2 is the scariest of all of the stages. And the bottom has truly bottomed out in you. I remember one of my study participants saying, you know what it feels like? It feels like every negative emotion you can imagine, getting punched in the gut and losing a child in a crowd all at the same time. I was like, you know what? That's a pretty good description. So the bottom has bottomed out of you, but think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. Most people stop here. And here's why. First of all, it feels so much better than the shock and trauma you came from. So we think it's good. We don't know there's anywhere else to go. We don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Here's where we join that, let's say, support group. And now we found our people. We will actually sabotage our healing because we found our people. Here's where we go to therapy, well-meaning, well-intentioned therapists, and you're going week after week, you're feeling heard and validated and understood. You're actually solidifying your spot in stage 3. Here's also where you start to heal, but you're afraid to outgrow the betrayer. So you sabotage your healing so you stay stuck.
Say that again and tell us in more detail what you mean by that. Why would someone be afraid to outgrow the betrayer?
This is a story that comes to mind. I had a woman come to me and say, Dr. Debi, my husband has been having affairs the entire 30 years of our marriage. He has no intention of stopping. Can you do something to my mind so it won't bother me? No, I can't. For her, there was such tremendous fear of starting over, of being on her own, of the finances, of all of that. So she wanted to instead find a way to make it okay. That's what I mean. Instead of being loved and respected and valued by herself and possibly someone else, she stayed with the familiar known. The only benefit of it was familiar. That was it. And that's what a lot of people do. And, I'm not judging anybody. We all make our own decisions, but there are so many people who decide it's better to stay here than take the risk of change, because this is at least what I know. Here's another quick story. I was working with a woman. She was in her mid 60s, and she was in a relationship, and he was betraying her over and over again. And so we did the work to move her through the stages. And again, I'll get to stages 4 and 5. And in stage 5, you have so much self-worth, self-love, confidence, all of this. And she says to me one day, she's like, Dr. Debi, what? She said, you know what he was? I said, what? He was a cone. What the heck does that mean? She goes, you ever go to a parking spot and you can't park there because there's a cone in the spot? She said, he was blocking my ability to park in that spot. And then when she realized that, she met the most wonderful man who loved her so dearly. And it was such a beautiful relationship. But she just came to this conclusion. He was a cone. And I was like, all right, that's a good one.
I haven't heard that before. How wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so stage 3, now here's the thing. We're able to function again. We're able to go back to work. We're able to raise our kids or take care of our parents or do our thing, but it's behind walls and it's with a flatness, so it's such a missed opportunity because we're fine.
So how do you bring someone who's saying to you, Dr. Debi, I this has been great. I really feel like I'm healing from what happened. I don't really need to go further. My life is working again, and I feel steady. So thank you very much. Like, is there a nudging that you can do at that point?
I love that question. I just met with a bunch of really great coaches, and I was sharing with them how it is the biggest missed opportunity, and they're doing the biggest disservice to their clients and themselves, because they graduate their clients at that exact point because they don't know what's the language of stage 3. And when a client says, I'm fine, who are we to question it if we don't know, right? So we assume, okay. But meanwhile, that client's saying, I guess this is as good as it's going to get for me. And the coach or practitioner is saying, I don't know what it is, but like my best stuff wasn't working with that client. It works for others. That's because that client was a betrayal client, even if they didn't come to them for that. They came for confidence or they came for business success, whatever. But when you know the language of each stage, you hear something like that and you know that's stage 3. And with some gentle questioning, you invite them to see and educate them into what stage 4 or stage 5 looks like.
And so what would be an example of gentle educating or that invitation? What would that sound like?
Yeah, it could sound anything like, you've really, let's say they're coming to you as a betrayal client.
Yeah.
You've made some great progress. That's great. And it's very safe. And it's really, and you're functioning again. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable again. It takes a lot of courage to learn how to trust again. When I just bring up the word vulnerability or trust, what does that feel like for you? You see,
even in this role play, I could feel it.
You see what I mean? And then, now I've been coaching for 34 years. So I'm going to watch the eye movements. I'm going to watch the head tilt and I'll be, what just happened right there? And then I know. And that's what I teach in the certification. It's really all about the language of each stage, because think about it. If you were going to graduate a client in stage 3, they may say, it was helpful. I worked with them and, I made some progress. But if you could take them through transformation, think of the referrals you're going to get. Think of and that's why we went into coaching in the first place, for the high fives and the transformations and the I had no idea I could do this.
Yes.
Can I take you into stages 4 and 5?
Yes, please.
Okay. To finish up with stage 3, which, if we weren't solidifying our spot here, because we're so miserable, right here we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So we use food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever, for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years out and say that emotional eating, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they look at me like I'm crazy. Say it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3. And in stage 3, they're medicating and suppressing symptoms of post betrayal syndrome. They're having repeat betrayals because nothing has really changed. And they're like, what is this? Am I destined to a life of repeat betrayals and illness and fine? No, but that's what you get in stage 3. Anyway, when we're willingness is a big word right here, let go of our story, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things we need to do. We move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where we acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. And it's very forward moving. What am I ready for? Who am I ready to become? What have I outgrown? What should I no longer tolerate? And here's where coaching gets fun. And we're actively taking all the parts we love about ourselves and leaving behind what no longer serves. When we've done this for a while, we settle into this new space. We move into the 5th most beautiful stage, and this is healing.
So when you say we're taking the parts of ourselves that we love, how are you recommending people do that? Do they visualize? Do they say no a lot to things that they don't want to take with them? Are they cleaning their attic? I mean, tell me.
There are so many things, so many parts to it. And because betrayal hits us on every level, it all has to be dealt with physically, mentally, emotionally, the whole thing. So it's not just one thing. Everybody has their own certain recipe in each of those areas, but we can't leave out any of those components, because if we do, we'll sabotage ourselves. So it all has to come along together.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and in stage 5 here, where we're making all new rules, new boundaries, we're taking care of the body, we're eating well, we're exercising. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now we do. We have we're creating a whole new life, whole new worldview based on everything we've experienced. In stage 5, we see new levels of health, new relationships, either with the person who hurt them in a very different way or with someone new, new passion projects, new businesses, like, the PBT Institute, National Forgiveness Day, all my books, all my stuff. That was all stage 5. Things like that. We see it all the time.
So when you think about these stages, and somebody comes to you, how long do you imagine they're going to be in coaching? Like, what do you tell people? This is all up to you. I don't know. This will take 3 months. Tell me what people can expect.
Yeah, it has so much more to do with willingness than time. Because if someone's resistant, if they refuse to give up the familiar known, it'll take forever. You want me to share the 3 groups that didn't heal? Because that'll explain it too.
Yes.
Okay, so to answer that question, there were 3 groups who didn't heal. So this way, it takes forever. The first group, they were numbing, avoiding, distracting. They ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer, anti-anxiety med. They were numbing in some way. It may have made the day a bit easier to get through, not without a price. They didn't heal. The second group, they had their story. They were sticking with it. They refused to let go of their story. They didn't heal. The third group, This was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences, whether it was out of financial fear, religious reasons, that was a big one, whatever it was, not wanting to break up a family. They did all they could just to look the other way, turn the other cheek. I saw two things with this group. Number one, a further deterioration of the relationship. And two, this group by far was the most physically sick. Your broken heart can't handle that. So those three groups, they didn't heal. They just didn't. And, it was a lifetime of medicating, suppressing, repeat betrayals. They were in a stage 3 life.
Yeah. And in a stage 3 life, they felt better, but they didn't actually get better in the way
Exactly.
that you think about it.
They were fine,
They were
surviving.
fine. Yeah, they were fine.
Yeah, but that's it. There's so much, like the worst of it happened already. You owe it to yourself to just feel what it feels like to rebuild your body, your mind, your heart. And you have access to all of that when you move to stages 4 and 5.
I mean, from what you've said, it sounds like at the moment that you began to understand all this, you decided that if you could heal, you'd give it to the world as well. And what was your process from thinking about that to actually writing these books, starting this institute? I mean, what a huge gift you've given to the world.
Thank you. This is what's so interesting. I am such a private person. And I think about it, betrayal is the most gossiped topic. I never gossiped. That was never my thing. I was never one of those, here's my entire life story. But how do you learn this kind of stuff and keep it to yourself? It's just, you just can't. So I remember, any good coach has a coach, right? And I remember being in a coaching program at the time, and everyone's, on their Zoom screens going around, what's new with you? What's new with you? And I was getting ready to share about my study and everything. And I'm thinking what I'm going to say. And it gets to be my turn. And I start talking about the study and everything else. And my coach just points his finger at me and he says, "Stop hiding behind your effing study already." And I was like, oh boy. So I actually sat down my whole family and I said, this is going to be out there. So you better tell your friends, you better whatever, because I don't want you to be shocked. And to close the loop on my story too, healing is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along. And that's what I did with my family. Wasn't an option to heal with them. They were deeply stuck in stage 3. So I healed and moved along. And if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, is to completely transform people. We married each other again.
Oh my God.
New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. And I consider myself a bright woman. Never would I have done that if he didn't completely change, and if I didn't either. And I've been in the ICU for 11 days. I've lost loved ones. Nothing was as hard as this. And with that, realizing how hard it is and the power of second chances and forgiveness and all of that, that's why I founded National Forgiveness Day.
Oh my goodness. I have to say that moment just gave me the chills to think that you married him again. And wow.
And that takes everything. I mean, I'm a highly sensitive empath, and integrity is my highest value. There's not a cell of me that was okay with that. So when I say I completely transformed and he did too, that's the opportunity. But when you get together with that person, you're learning each other again because you're 2 new people. It's such a missed opportunity with so many, but they're afraid of the crash and burn of the old. That's the only way. That's the only way you could build something new.
Do you remember that moment where you both made the choice where we want to do this?
It was one of those things where I was torturing myself because of my ego and pride and how I always looked at someone who I think I only saw it from the lens of there was not the crash and burn of the old. They just decided to tolerate or let it go or whatever. And I couldn't live with that. I couldn't. But doing it the way we did, and now, working with all of our coaches and practitioners and people we've moved through the PBT Institute, we've seen it every combination where they have such new, beautiful relationships with the person who hurt them in a very different way, or with someone new. Like the story I told you about the cone, for her, it was, and she was ready for a stage 5 beautiful relationship with someone new. But I've seen it with some of our own coaches that we've certified and practitioners and clients where they have beautiful, beautiful new relationships with their partners, but they're both at stage 5, and they are meeting up in a very different way. And we've worked with, I used to have a program for the betrayers and for the betrayed, and I had partners in both programs, and I would hear from both of them saying how different things were. So really, by the time they were both at the end of their programs, the transformations were just beautiful.
Dr. Debi, that is a beautiful place to end for today. I can't believe we're out of time, but I so appreciate this journey that you've taken us on through the stages, and how this kind of how betrayal is a different kind of trauma, and it certainly is, and your own story. Thank you so much for sharing. And where can people find you when they want to read you, when they want to hear about the coaching program, when they're hurting and they know that after listening to this, you're the person they need to talk to?
Oh, thank you. Everything is at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. And we've changed it where, so in the past, we had our signature program, which literally moves you through the stages, working with my coaches. And then everybody said, well, we're meeting you on these podcasts. We want to work with you. So our newest program is moving you through the stages with me going live, answering your questions live every other week.
What a gift. That's wonderful. Congratulations on manifesting this healing for the world, as well as taking yourself with courage and boldness through your own process and discovering it at the same time. Amazing. I love your story. Thank you, world's leading expert on this work, Dr. Debi Silber. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this hour. I know you're walking away with such meaningful information and nourishment from the hour with Dr. Debi. Thank you. Thanks for joining me for today's episode. I hope you found it helpful and meaningful. If you want to listen to other episodes of the Gaslight Effect Podcast, you can find them at robinstern.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. And please leave a rating and a review. I also invite you to follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm so grateful to have many people supporting me, and especially grateful for all of you, my listeners.